Acton in Focus is brought to you by Acton Pharmacy.
Welcome to Acton in Focus. I'm Vivian Kobusingye Birchall, your host. My guests are Debra and Kim Kastens from Green Acton. Debra and Kim, welcome to Acton in Focus.
Thank you, Vivian. We're so glad to be here. Thanks for having us.
Please introduce yourselves and what you do at Green Acton, starting with Debra.
Okay. Well, I am one of two co-presidents of Green Acton, along with Sue Jick, and I do a whole mess of things that I'm not going to bore you with, but I'm part of, I guess, in a sense, a leadership team of Green Acton.
And I am Kim Kastens, and I chair the Water Committee. So Water Committee deals with lots of different kinds of things, but overall, we're trying to protect and improve Acton's groundwater, surface water, and drinking water.
Well, welcome again. And so what led to the creation of Green Acton, and what are the organization's goals and objectives? We can start with you, Debra.
Sure. Well, a little teeny bit of history is that a long, long time ago when the W.R. Grace, Superfund site, well, before it was a Superfund site, there was some pretty serious contamination of a couple of our drinking water wells in Acton, and a bunch of local residents got together and were fairly alarmed and started an organization called Acton Citizens for Environmental Safety. And that group worked, bird dogging what was eventually the cleanup at the Superfund site at W.R. Grace. And over the decades, people left or a few died, and that organization became less active. And in the meantime, back in 2008, a bunch of folks in town who were interested in environmental issues we started organizing ourselves and, looking at what we might do. And ultimately, we did a number of projects in the early years. So I guess that makes us almost 13 years old now. Wow. And then in 2016, we became a nonprofit. So we're tax exempt, yay. And now we're, a lot more organized than we were in the early years. We have committee structures, as Kim mentioned. There's a water committee, there's a land use committee, there's an energy committee, there's a materials and plastics committee. We have any number of things. And we work on, essentially our mission is to protect the environment and the natural resources that we're blessed with, and to tackle, taken together, the variety of critical environmental crises that we face right now. We can talk about pollution and climate and any number of things. So that's the sort of top level thing I would say about our mission. And I would add that we also try to pay attention to environmental justice issues in our work.
Kim, do you have anything to add to that?
I would say we're a totally volunteer organization. So we don't have any paid staff. It's totally powered by, passionate people who are doing this in their spare time, and get a lot done for a small organization with a.
We're small but mighty.
Small but mighty. That's us, Debra.
Well, national and local efforts to reduce our environmental risks are based on the best available scientific information. So my question to you is, what are Green Acton's main sources of information that influences your actions?
Gosh, I would say a lot of different sources, and it really depends, because at this point, we have dedicated teams or committees working on, on different areas that probably the folks who work on those teams could answer that question, specifically to their work better than I can across the board. I can speak, I'm part of the energy committee, so I can say a couple of words about that. And then I'm sure Kim can talk about water stuff.
Yeah, I have a question for water directly.
Oh, there's so much to say, right?
Yeah, but yes.
Yeah, so we look at honestly just the best climate science we can get our eyeballs on. So, some of it comes out of the Rocky Mountain Institute. It comes out of the International Panel on Climate Change. It comes out of some state level organizations that do terrific, work in that sector. And the other thing is that this is not a direct answer, but it's relevant, which is that we all work and we collaborate with other groups, both in town and around the state, and even a little bit nationally, honestly. So locally, for instance, we work with the town government on various projects. We work with the water district. We work with the school district, or have more a while ago than we do currently, but with the school district, with the Green Advisory Board, with the Acton Climate Coalition, with Mothers Out Front. And I'm sure Kim will go on and talk about some of the groups that water is involved with. So that's a quick take on that.
Well, we'll dive right into the water committee, I think. I'll call it. Is that what you call it, Kim?
Yeah.
So what are some of the water-related issues that Green Acton has been working on?
Well, the water committee kind of picked up the mantle from ACES as far as monitoring the two Superfund sites, the W.R. Grace site and the nuclear metals site. So we continue to follow closely the developments at those two sites. We have pretty good working relationship with the remediation managers at the two sites. They put out, you asked a moment ago about what kind of science do we depend on. The Environmental Protection Agency puts out large amounts of data coming out of those two sites. And we did advocate when 1,4-dioxane emerged as a contaminant of concern, an emerging contaminant. We did advocate for them to do additional sampling, which they did. So that was a case where we actually pushed the edges of the science for more data to be collected and made public. We also get a lot of good data from ORS, the Organization for the Assabet, Sudbury, and Concord Rivers. So they run a citizen science program that collects data on water quality throughout the whole watershed. And several of the water committee people are also ORS volunteers. So we have sort of this larger context of the watershed-wide water quality situation, which is the situate our Acton situation. So with respect to issues, so we have this 1,4-dioxane that I mentioned. Our most recently emerging water problem has to do with PFAS, which became known to be an issue in Acton as throughout many towns in Massachusetts about a year ago. So we're following that. And then there's just sort of the general demand for water that increases as the population of the town increases. And finally, our work intersects with climate change insofar as the climate change prediction for our area is for a more volatile climate, a more widely changing climate with more frequent droughts on the one hand and more frequent torrential storms on the other hand, so both of which are water. Oh, and we also do a little tiny bit of citizen science ourselves. We actually do have one small water collection, water quality project on Nagog Brook, where we regularly monitor the stream level and the water temperature of Nagog Brook. So we do actually collect a little bit of data. And I guess the BioBlitz coming up is going to be our next foray into citizen science. So that hasn't been a major thrust of Green Acton, but it is something that we do dip our toe into.
Well, my next question is going to build on to what you've already mentioned about Acton residents' concerns regarding our water quality. So in previous months, the residents have expressed horror at the PFA levels, and many still do not think it's safe to drink tap water, and so they do not. So my question to you as experts in this area, should Acton residents continue to be worried? And also last week, Acton Water District communicated that they have begun sampling treated drinking water in Acton monthly. Why is this important for the community?
So Acton Water District has for years sampled water quality. So that's not something new. They've been doing that for years. And they're very open with their data. They publish it on their website. They put it out annually. If there's some detail or quirk that that wasn't included in the public data release, they're very open and generous about sharing any of their data with the public. So they've been collecting water quality data for a long time. So it's this new contaminant, PFAS, which was only recognized by the state of Massachusetts as having a maximum contaminant level, an MCL, in October of 2020. So it's only been a few months that this particular contaminant has been something that water suppliers have been required to test for and required to remediate for. So they're just basically following the directives from Mass DEP about sampling for this contaminant at the time that they're required to sample for it. So that's not surprising or alarming. They actually started sampling a full year ago, so there is a full year of background data on PFAS before they were required to. And as for the drinking water quality, so the latest Acton Water District data that just came out maybe 3 days ago shows that all the treatment plants are producing water that's below the Massachusetts maximum contaminant level. So for the vast majority of people, the water should be just fine. There are sensitive populations such as infants and pregnant women and nursing mothers that may want to be concerned at a lower level than that. And both the Acton Water District site and the Mass DEP site have further guidance, and actually the Green Acton site as well has further guidance about steps you can take if you want to reduce your contaminant level below what the state requires for the larger population.
Debra, do you have anything to add to that?
I was just going to jump on quickly to say that, as in all environmental issues, they're all cross-cutting. They all affect each other. They all interact with each other. So as Kib says, for the vast majority of people, the drinking water is fine. And one of the things at Green Acton, obviously the Water Committee in particular is paying close attention to, to the reports and to the science of it. The other thing that we're mindful of is, as people are running to, out of perhaps not enough information to know what to do, that they turn then to bottled water, which of course exacerbates the plastics problem. And Kim, you may want to say more about a couple of things here, but that bottled water also doesn't have to pass muster, particularly in terms of its quality. And the other thing, I don't know if you want to say anything about RO systems, about reverse osmosis systems that some people are now starting to install in their homes. You want to say a word about that,
Yeah,
Kim?
I'll mention that. So the larger point, I totally agree with Debra that these things are all very interconnected. And so you try to fix one thing and you find out that you messed up something else. And that is the nature of a system. So the earth and environment are a system. All the parts are connected to each other. So land use is connected to water, which is connected to energy. So it takes lots of energy to fix polluted water. It takes a lot of water to generate most kinds of energy. So it's all connected. So with respect to the reverse osmosis systems, one strategy that works from a technical perspective as far as taking PFAS out of your household water is a reverse osmosis system. However, the trouble with that is that the reverse osmosis system doesn't make the PFAS go away or break it down in any way. It merely keeps it out of your drinking water, but the reject water that is rejected by the reverse osmosis system then just goes down your drain pipe. And if your drain pipe leads to a septic system, it just sends the contaminant right back into the aquifer, where it's just there to be picked up when it reaches the next well. So actually, Mass DEP in Massachusetts, reverse osmosis water is not allowed to be discharged into a septic system. So for the majority of households in Acton, which are served by septic systems, it's not actually even legal to use a reverse osmosis system. So there are other kinds of filtration systems that you can install, but not reverse osmosis. So it's a case where you try to fix one thing and you're just messing up something else.
So given that, when you're explaining all these processes, it might sound complex to people who are not experts in water and environment. So do you have programs at Green Acton that sensitize the communities about what to do regarding the sustainable and environmental issues in our community?
I would say two things. One is that our Green Acton website, which of course I'm going to plug, it's greenacton.org, is a source of a lot of information about all kinds of issues, water and a whole bunch of other things. We don't tend to say, do this or do that exactly. We tend to say, here's the information, here's what we advocate for. We hope that you will understand, that this is the best way forward. And we hope that you'll, act on that. I will say we work, as I said before, with the Acton Climate Coalition a bunch, and there is going to be semi-soon a really awesome online tool that residents will be able to go to and see all the kinds of actions that they can take in a variety of, realms. And they're all focused, for this thing, they're all focused ultimately on climate, but they go across all kinds of issues. So that will be a terrific tool that will be unrolling in the coming months. And the other thing that we do is that we sponsor, not so much in real life anymore since COVID, but we do sponsor educational events. There have been, gas leaks events and water events. And what's the one I'm forgetting? Oh, and there's a plastics thing happening, or will have happened by the time people are seeing this. But again, all that stuff can be found on our website. There's a calendar where you can see what upcoming events there are.
In 2018, speaking of advocacy and information sharing, you hosted our Dioxane and Acton water panel. So what were some of the results from that conversation?
So that was part of a complicated story. There was an emerging contaminant called 1,4-dioxane, which was discovered to be actually a problem at both of our local Superfund sites, the Nuclear Metals site and the W.R. Grace site. As it happens, this emerging contaminant emerged after the W.R. Grace site had already completed their remediation planning, but before the Nuclear Metals site had finished their remediation planning. So cleaning up 1,4-dioxane was written into the plan for one of the Superfund sites, the newer one, but not for the older Superfund site. So I had an opportunity to travel to Washington with a group from the Center for Health, Environment, and Justice, Lois Gibbs's organization, and advocate in Washington at EPA headquarters for 1,4-dioxane to be better understood, better sampled at the W.R. Grace site. So we did actually advocate for that, and they did indeed do some more sampling. As sort of along the way in that process, we organized an informational panel because, as as I can tell from your questions, you understand, how important it is to have the public on board with what's going on. So it was an excellent panel. We had a speaker from Mass DEP talking from the Massachusetts Department of Environmental Protection, who was a toxicologist. We had an environmental consultant, and we had the environmental compliance officer from the Acton Water District as our three panelists. And they had great information, very well illustrated, very thoughtful comments that we think, help the public understand what was going on with this hard to understand situation. In that particular case, there's a plume of this contaminant coming across the border from Concord into Acton and heading straight towards one of the public water supply wells. However, the remediation process has drilled an intersecting well to basically intersect the plume and capture the water, treat it for 1,4-dioxane, and then release it back into the Assabet River. So that's a hard thing to understand. It's hard to explain. It was beyond what we could just fit into a web post. It was great to have, sort of this panel of people commenting on, why is this dangerous? How are we tackling the problem of remediating it? And is it actually working from the point of view of the water quality? So that was our first effort of that ambition. as far as organizing a public event. And ActonTV was really helpful on helping us set that up and recording it and making it available for people who weren't able to show up on that particular evening to hear it live.
Do you have a follow-up event?
A follow-up event. We do not have a follow-up event. I have a started blog post basically writing about the most recent set of data that has come. So in December, we got a new set of data from the EPA and GRACE showing that the concentrations of 1,4-dioxane are not near the public water supply wells, nor are they in places where the water is thought to be flowing towards the water supply wells. Before this new data was collected, that wasn't clear. The data was pretty patchy in both space and time. So anyways, I'm feeling pretty reassured about the 1,4-dioxane, and I've started to write about that, but that's not public yet. That'll be on the website.
Excellent.
Soon?
Yes, Debra.
Can I jump in for 1 sec just to say that, as Kim has just said, our website will always have tons of this kind of information. So it's a great resource for residents to go check out what's happening. And we also, when we put stuff like that on the website, we push it out, we push little teasers out to social media as well. So if people follow us on Facebook and on Twitter, we're not on Instagram, but on those two at least, they can also get wind of it that way. And I will say that especially around the water issues in the last few months, social media has really, people have brought their questions to local social media pages, and that's been a source both of questions and and alarm, obviously. But it's been helpful because we've been able to direct people to the water district, which, as Kim says, is also always really forthcoming with its data, and to our website as well.
Which takes me right into the last question starting with you, Deb. You said Green Acton is a volunteer-based organization. So who can be a part of Green Acton, and how can they contact the organization?
Absolutely anybody who lives here or works here or has some relationship to the community. And I will of course say that we are always looking for more people to join us in all these efforts, because we unfortunately can't clone ourselves yet. So there are, so many issues, so little time kind of thing. So we would love for more folks who have any interest in environmental issues, climate issues, water issues, any of that stuff. And particularly from communities that tend to be a little more marginalized and not as engaged in some of these issues, we would be thrilled if folks would contact us. And the easiest way to do that, of course, is via the website. If you go there, there's a contact, at the top, there's a little contact button you can push, and that will go to the administrative folks who will then, either answer or funnel it to the right person who should answer. Yeah, that's it.
Well, ladies, it's been an honor and a pleasure hosting you today to give us an insight into Green Acton. Thanks for the information that you have provided us with. And I look forward to hosting you again to give us updates on what's going on at Green Acton.
Vivian, thank you so much. It's been great. Thank you.
Good.
And to our viewers, if you have any questions or stories about Acton, just email us at infocus@actontv.org. Again, it's infocus@actontv.org. Thank you for watching Acton in Focus. Till next time.